be concerned at that point because it was so low, and we wanted to make sure we were being transparent. So shortly after that, I think we talked to you about the situation and the fact that we had lost so many good contributors, and some had lost, moved away, others were deceased. So everyone responded extremely well, and for the end of the year, the total was 456,453. I think the budget at that time was somewhere around 480,000, so it was pretty close, and we made up a lot of that shortage during the year. In 25, we started out much stronger in the first quarter, 132,613, and didn't end up quite as strong, but overall we had 425,733. And of course we had the campaign, which was involved in those numbers as well, and Sally's going to talk to you about that. So that may have had some impact on the total. So far this year, we are starting off with a good quarter of 129,188, and hopefully we can reach our needed goal of 480,000. Next. To give you an idea of last year versus this year on some of the income numbers, besides the fact that we trace what we call uses needed, which is basically unrestricted, we've also tried to concentrate on other income streams to supplement that income. And as you can see, in 25, we had $6,650 worth of rental income and $3,000 so far this year. 25 was a combination of the library starting in September. We were getting $1,000 a month through the end of the year, and that's what the $3,000 is for the first quarter in 26. The other part of 25 was we actually are paid by the help organization when we have Night's Welcome here, and they actually pay us, I think it's $2,850 for the month when we do a full month of housing. So investment income is a combination of 4 CDs that we have out there that are a total of about $440,000, and they are getting a various number of interest amounts, rates, anywhere from 4% down to 3.6, I believe. And so far, and in addition to that, we also get 2.72% from our fund account, which is the largest account that we have. And this year we have 7,653 for the first quarter. So the total revenue, first quarter of each year, as you can see, is running pretty true. And for the year, we're doing quite well, and hopefully have a good, strong finish this year. We'll keep you posted and probably on a quarterly basis. Total expenses in 2024, $414,000, 25, $395,000, and 26, $115,000 so far in the first quarter. There was a cost reduction program that we were pushing in 25. We eliminated 1 person in staff, part-time person, and I think we were looking very closely at our expenses and trying to keep those as low as possible, so we actually saved about $20,000. Bottom line, 24, $80,790, that's a positive. 25, $74,093 positive, and 26, $25,752 for the first quarter. And when I say positive, I want to make sure you understand that there are times that if we have the opportunity, we apply the fund, what we call the funds accounts, to the expenses for those designated funds. In other words, someone gives to the youth activities fund. If we have expenses for that, we take that out of the youth activities fund money rather than taking it out of the general fund. And by doing that, we are using the funds as they are designated to honor the people who are making those contributions. And we're also converting some of that fund money, which is restricted, into unrestricted funds by not using the general fund. So it helps on both cases, and we can grow our unrestricted cash fund in the process, which currently is running about $250,000. So we're doing well there. Restricted funds that I was just talking about that were used during those 3 years, you can see that's 89,000, 65,000, and only 12,000 so far this quarter, but we really haven't done much as far as mission trips and other expenses that we use those numbers for. So I would suspect that we're going to be somewhere in the same realm as 2025. And this does not include the money that goes into the campaign fund, even though it is a restricted fund. I've separated that out just to get a more realistic comparison. This is the cost reduction that we talked about earlier, and we were able to save a considerable amount by switching insurance carriers, and that continues in 26. It went up just a few dollars in 26. And administration, obviously, we saved some money there, not only with the position that was eliminated, and thank you for all the volunteers who have stepped in to cover that. They've done an excellent job since all of last year, and they continue this year. That's all I have, and if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them after Sally and Eric have a chance to talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay, George. Thank you. And although I'm billed on the docket as speaking about the campaign, I will take a moment of privilege as the finance lead to first thank George, and also to say, as a follow-up to his comments, once a month, at the request of many of our longtime congregants, we post in the bulletin that the giving for the preceding month to make you aware. But we understand that that causes concern for people who may not come to these sessions and might not understand the full context of our financial health, really. And so I wanted to mention to you and certainly ask you if you hear people in the pew next to you saying, oh my gosh, we're behind, although we're not behind, but it might happen, some month that we'll be behind. We've tried to tweak the language without taking up too much real estate to make it clear that we do have reserve funds. We're okay. We are very, very healthy as a church. However, in order to fund our ministry and all of the work that we do need an income base. And so that's why we're putting this here. We're being honest about it. And I hope that transparency has more benefits than concerns. But if anyone expresses a concern to you, please send them to George or to me, and any of the finance team can help them understand that we really are okay. We just have to keep that steady stream so that we're not having any kind of panicked meetings like we have in the past. Okay, well, we had the capital campaign kickoff, as you know, in the fall, and the capital project campaign, we call it Restoring Our Future, because it is about restoring the wonderful church that we have been for almost 150 years, to make sure that it can continue its great work in the community for the future. But the campaign is really focused on one-time expenses and physical improvements that aren't ongoing. So the monies that George was talking about, the annual giving or the weekly giving, however you choose to support this church, that covers our day-to-day expenses, the ongoing expenses, and supports our ongoing ministry activities. The capital campaign projects that we've talked about in some detail at previous meetings are really one-time things that kind of give us a shot in the arm and get us in good shape for the next quarter century. So if you haven't already picked up a letter to you on the table, please do before you leave. We're going to save some stamps if we can today. But the point, again, of the campaign is that restoring our future. We have received pledges so far that just barely exceed $1 million, which is amazing. This is yay! Yeah. It's a 3-year initiative, and it is never too late to jump on the train, never too late to join. We do have a few people who have elected not to make pledges, but have made contributions. We have some people who've pledged, but haven't been able to contribute yet. All totally fine, because the project stack, which, by the way, hangs on the bulletin board just outside the office, has so much work on it that we can't do it all at one time. So it's a nice design, actually. As revenue comes in, we kick off new initiatives, and you can keep track of those with our monthly updates on the board. So I'm not going to focus too much on each individual one. But we have received just over $500,000 in donations already, and those have allowed us to get started. Now, the other thing about the capital campaign is a lot of it you can see with your eyes, but some of it you can't see, but it's really important, and I want to make sure you understand that. So all of you who encounter the sanctuary, whether it's for worship or just for popping in there or for funerals or events, whatever you're in there for, can clearly see the aesthetic improvements. The pew cushions, by the way, are supposed to ship the last week of April. Huzzah. But there's stuff that you can't necessarily see. For example, the steeple repair has been done. So you'll recall that nice watermark on the back wall that you can no longer see. We do not expect it to recur because we've been able to repair the steeple, the flooding that was occurring. Also, we've signed a contract and made a deposit on the organ leathers. Although it was very fascinating for me to get to see the organ leathers when the guy came to do the estimate, probably a lot of you won't see them, and you don't necessarily want to see how the sausage is made. But that's another thing that is kind of a behind-the-scenes benefit of, and very much part of restoring our future. Speaking of the funds that George was mentioning during his presentation, I do want to share with you that some of the funding for the organ leathers is coming from music fund gifts that people have given over the years. So the total amount for the organ will not come from the capital campaign gifts. We're using both funds for that in recognition that the organ is more important to some of our members than to others. But anyway, I just wanted to give you that as an example of how the funds are used. In this room, I mean, windows. What don't you see? What don't you see running along the floor over, yay, no more snake. So it's stuff that you can see with your eyes. But what you may not realize is that there have also been acoustic improvements that are up in that part of the stage. There will be some lighting changes that you may or may not notice, depending on how you notice those sorts of things. You may or may not realize that the speakers that used to be down here on the floor are hidden behind those monitors now. So it's pretty cool. But maybe that has to do with the whole faith thing and believe and all that stuff. So there are things that we can't always see, but that's the magic of this campaign. Okay, let's see. Oh, so what we did not anticipate when we built the project stack was, thank you, I got a little ahead of myself, was the elevator. Those of us who were here for the 1997, 8, 9, 2000, whatever, So That All Can Come, Now All Can Come campaign cycle know how important that elevator is. And those of you who weren't here then, A, we're really glad you're here now, but B, there was a time when this building did not have an elevator. So it's important. It's also 25 years old, 26 years old, and it does need some repair. So, and it will be an over $100,000 repair. We had to add it to the stack. So our project stack total estimate now is more like 1.1 million or $1.2 million. I have faith that additional funds will come in, that people will pledge or be able to, donate more, whatever. It'll all come together. It just means that this is a blessing that we have a 3-year campaign. So we have time to do the priority things as the funding is available. Nothing has come off the stack. We're hoping that we can continue all the way through the list of projects that you see out there, but I did want to make you aware that that's an addition, and that we will have to address that soon. It's the mechanics of it, and in fixing the mechanics, we will have to respect and become compliant with code changes that have happened in the last quarter century. So that's what's going on with all of that. So again, we're spending as the giving comes in. We keep enough of a balance to cover the encumbrances that we've already accepted, but it's coming along, and as funds arrive, we will continue to make these great improvements, some of which you'll be able to see, some of which will be behind the scenes magic, but all of which we will continue to report on the bulletin board and at future meetings. Last thing I want to say, in addition to grabbing the letter, if you need a pledge card or the QR code or whatever, we still have the materials from the fall. And again, it is never too late to jump on the train. The other thing I wanted to let you know is that on the church's website, we've enhanced the giving page. So on the giving page, there is a place where you can either make a pledge or a gift. And you know what else? We added the time and talents link this year. So if you are one of the dozens of people who didn't turn in a time and talent sheet this year, please think about doing that. You could do it online, or we still have extra copies as well. But financial support is imperative for our ministries, but so is sweat equity. So we really, really do need help with, again, the visible part of running this church and also the behind the scenes part of running this church. I was here yesterday morning printing those letters, and there was an army of people putting air conditioning units in windows. I mean, you don't think about it, but we need people to help with stuff like that. So give the time and talents some thought too. Sorry, I just went back to being the finance lead instead of the campaign co-chair. But anyway, I'm going to do what I can do while I have the mic. And again, questions after Eric. Thank you.
All of this is for the sake of Vision 2030. You may recall a few years ago, we said we want to do a capital campaign, and we called in Horizons Consulting, and they said, that's great, what's your vision? And so we went to work trying to do that work, the discernment process, and we share with you sort of 3 lines of charge, 3 planks, if you will, and it is our dedication to continue to report on how we are doing on attempting going towards some of those things. Obviously, some have had more emphasis than others. A capital campaign invests more in one than the others, but you guys, you'll see they're all, over time, getting their investment. You may recall the experience life-changing growth is the number one thing. If folks are coming to our church and their life isn't changing or growing, then it's, right, they'll go elsewhere. They can do social services, they can go other places, read books, but what is it about our particular faith community helps them experience life-changing growth and changes lives of people in this community? Last fall, we did a gratitude dinner for the first time, and a big props to Donna Hearing for her leadership on that. You may notice this spring, 2 weeks ago now, we did the egg extravaganza instead of just doing the Easter egg hunt on our own. And while we had a couple technical difficulties once we got there, people were just amazed. We got tons and tons and tons of folks from the community, not just attending, but sending us thank yous and just thank you so much. It was so great for my kids. It's great to know that churches like you exist in the world. And some have their own churches, and some are looking at us now. And certainly the neighborhood and the community, Hampton, knows that we're here and we're trying to do things that help them change their lives. We have investment that still needs to come on this particular plank in terms of what does the process look like from a person who just tangentially hears about our church or maybe barely touches it by way of the egg hunt or a trunk or treat. How do you go from that place down to end up being a super leader like some of our speakers here today, right? What does that faith formation pathway look like? And so that's some of the work we still have to do to look to is, okay, is there a path? And, what is the next track on their playlist, if you prefer that metaphor? What does that engagement path look like? And so for you all who are the people who are here, you all are super leaders. If you want some help with that, that's what we can offer in a church our size. I can help you individually create those next track. Look at what kinds of resources or opportunities are available and help you do that discernment work. Because obviously the hardest part is sometimes just knowing what the next thing is for any of us. So let me know. I'm glad to help you engage on that. Want to experience life-changing growth, live as a multi-generational place for families. In January, we started our call to parents once a month. We call it a small group, but it's really half a church endeavor because of all the investment it takes between folks helping with childcare. We had 20 parents with 20 kids, and we survived that night, but we said, we've got a lot of work to do. It was an incredible night, and we've done it 3 times since then. We're going to do another one here the end of April, beginning of May, and we're just figuring out the right timing for everyone. We did a survey, and all the results are coming in very positively. So we are really grateful that the investment we are doing into this place is showing dividends in really incredible ways. I also plan to start a youngish small group, basically at a dinner, probably at a Vanguard sometime here soon. So that's going to start in the near future. But of course, much of what we've talked about already is about activating our facilities to become a sustainable community hub. Not just we exist for the community, but everyone knows about it. If they have answers or questions, you end up being like the Faith 311 of the community. If you want to connect somehow, you want to be able to serve this community, you come here. A big shout out to Upper Fellowship Hall men, as I refer to them, George and Rob and Steve Smith, who have put in incredible hours of physical labor. Did you know the wainscoting that used to be on that back wall, which used to be part of the choir loft half this way, was 5/4 inch? I mean, this was no joke. And it was one solid piece, as I recall, right, George? I mean, it was a lot of work. So a huge amount of work to them. And then, of course, facilities folks, 3 of our facilities team folks are here, put in a ton of labor to help make that happen. Huge amounts of money saved for the church and their free labor. I'm really grateful for that as well. Our library friends have helped, of course, with the income side of thing. We have a meeting with potential very tiny, small childcare endeavor coming in the next couple of weeks. It wouldn't be, like we're not talking like a big school. But all these things, we're starting to have the conversation. So people are starting to hear we're a place that has a building that wants to serve the community and we're good to work with. So all those things help us to both serve the community and to be able to have a sustainable funding stream to be able to do that serves us and serves them, and everyone's better for that. And of course, I just got to remind you, on the daily, we are serving folks who are unhoused, or going through times of, just every single day, multiple people who are unhoused show up at our building, and we do everything we can to help them. But you stop. The first question I always ask when I was interviewing for different churches is, if your church disappeared off the face of planet Earth, who would care and why? And I can tell you on the daily basis who would care and why, and they're some of the most vulnerable in our society. So I'm just daily proud of our church. Underlying all of that, we do incredible things. You've heard about some of the incredible things. If no one knows about it, who's going to come? We live in this so-called post-literate world, where it's not a matter of do you get information, or like you and I have endless amounts of information into us. It's how do you get that information? How do we get it into the hands of people who are most likely to need this kind of faith growth, who want to serve the community, do all the things that our church is all about? Communications is is one of the things. When we brought in Horizons and Mark Meyer, one of the first things that became clear of the different planks, okay, financial situation, we got to make sure we take care of that, and then the investments into this community hub. The next thing that was really clear is communications has to grow in its form. Now, when you and I think about communications, we think about bulletins, newsletters, maybe digital things, and all those are important pieces of communication. But underlying all of it is infrastructure. What are the processes by which, if you want to, say, have an event at the church, how do you get that through the system, right? Like, who gets to know about it? Who publicizes it? Where does it get put? Does it get shared with certain groups or the whole church? Does it get mailed? All that takes infinite amounts of time when you start to think about the different channels or platforms of information, right? You have print. You could have multiple forms of print. You can have digital. You can have 5 billion forms of digital information sharing, right? And that all can happen, but it takes a lot of coordination and infrastructure. So one of the things that your session discerned these past few months is that we need someone who can help us do that. And that's why we are announcing for the whole church publicly today, we are going to hire a communications and marketing coordinator. And you can check out that job description at firstpresshampton.org/employment. It's under the About tab, but with more fun, you can, we'll go to the goals in just a second. You could also scan the QR codes that you'll see here on these highly designed job ads. This is what happens if your pastor is in charge of creating ads, by the way. If you want them better, you should hire somebody. Well, of course, the question is how? How are we doing this? The capital campaign has funds set aside for such a thing because, as we talked about in our metaphor, it's one thing if we plug all the holes of the boat and we get the boat, more or less in sailing shape. But if we can't get to the next port, right, or in this case with communications, the port doesn't even know we're coming because we can't communicate clearly to said port that it wants us, right? The metaphor starts breaking down, but hopefully you're hearing the pieces that matter, right? We have to be able to connect with the community that we're trying to reach. That's what communication is, just our voice, the voice of this church, reaching the folks we're trying to reach. In an oversaturated market of information, that takes more and more and more effort. Today, non-denominational churches who plant themselves in different places, they're hire themselves a pastor, and then the next person is going to be doing graphic design, communications, arts. That's the second hire. It used to be music and all those things. Some folks would do digital tracks, they'll do a bunch of different things until they get to a music person, right? So you can see how these church plants have seen how that communication piece is the second biggest challenge. You got to have somebody leading the thing and preaching, hopefully, and then you also got to figure out how do you communicate that message to the world. So some of the goals for that position in year one, right, building that infrastructure. What are the channels? What's the system if you want to communicate something in the church bulletin or in email or connect it? How do we do that? So building those channels, and then also helping us develop a sense of voice. We talked sometimes in this setting about Dana and Dylan, an imaginary family in Hampton that we're trying to reach, and what are the attributes of that family. We have a whole sort of a demographic, a profile built of that. Is if at any given year you're shooting your dart towards one target, right now at this particular moment we're shooting towards Dana and Dylan, what are the words that when we say them would connect with them, right? I can use the word stewardship all day, and for many of us in this room that means something deeply because we learned what that means. If you're unchurched, what on earth is stewardship, right? Discipleship, what, right? Life-changing growth is meant to be language that can connect, for example, with folks that we're trying to reach. So the communications expert can help us to understand who those people we're trying to reach are, and then what kind of messaging reflects that? Of course, what kind of channels, right? Should you be on TikTok or Reddit or Instagram or all these things that even I, in my age 40, I don't know, right? My wife is hiring a new marketing person at the library right now, and there's stuff she just has to go, even though I'm in charge of this stuff, it just changes so rapidly that it's really hard to know. You have to have folks who are really focused on some of the work. What's the best? And you don't want to burn yourself out, but you can't do all the things, right? So figuring out how to focus. So those are some of the external pieces. Internally, you're going to see some greater cohesion. There'll be touch points. Communication is a tide that lifts all the boats at once, which is why session feels like this is such a strong and important role. They'll be proactive. We'll have planning. We'll have, folks have complained the past few months, even in session. We don't have a plan in terms of certain events. We have a plan of where we're going as a church, but how do we plan out certain events and things? This is someone who can help us to do many of those things. As you can see from some of these ads, and featuring the Peltz girls, part-time, 20 and 25 hours a week. They could go to the website, they can email me. I'm glad to sit down with folks one-on-one. We're trying to make the end of this week be our first deadline for applicants. We've got a couple that have come in, and we hope for some more by the end of this week. We have a couple more we think are coming in. But we're not putting it on places like Indeed or LinkedIn, because today, all the advice we've been getting from Ken Meyer, who is a communications consultant, is that you mostly get trash. You mostly get a lot of random things. The age of AI, you get random nonsense profile. You get all sorts of junk. So it's really going to be word of mouth. It's going to be people in this room or in this church or connected to our church who are going to know somebody. And so I'm glad to email you any of those particular ads that you think, as you can see, I've built them for different audiences, different age groups. Some people love cat memes. If you know people love cat memes, I will send you the cat meme picture. Then you can text it to your friend who loves the cat meme thing. We know this is not a full-time job. Well, it could be. We wish it was a full-time job. We can't pay full-time job hours, but what we can do is offer flexibility for folks who have other responsibilities in their life, caretaking, right, for children or elderly adults in their life. So we want to be flexible. They're not going to be here on site every Sunday, but certainly on enough that you know them well. That is a lot, and it's 10 till. Are there any questions that have come up? Because that was a lot to drop into. We are very excited about this position and what it's going to do to help us align so much of what we do. Sometimes we can feel scattered, right? We're all can end up in our little silos, but we know the communications person is going to help us align that voice in a direction. Are there any questions? For any of us, not just me. Let's be super clear. We are here because of the faithfulness of First Presbyterian Church of Hampton, of your giving, certainly of your time, the incredible volunteers, as was mentioned, stepping into that office role, the incredible folks who helped to build this, who are working on the projects, who are keeping up the facilities, who are running worship. And all the million different ministries, from the blood drive tomorrow. There is so much good stuff happening in this church. I'm done with the times where I tell people about the church's name. They go, "Oh, that's great. Where is that?" That should be over when we invest well in our communications arm. So that's my hope and prayer for all of us. Speaking of hopes and prayers, let's turn those into reality, as you'll hear about some of you in the sermon today, going just from belief to trust. Let's trust in God and pray. Holy and gracious God, as the psalmist says, you have been faithful to all generations. As another psalmist says, let us be the generation that calls out to the next how great you are and how great is your love. May the investments in this building, the building up of our ministries, the giving of every dollar, of every moment of time, of our hearts, may it all be done for your glory. We lift up to you this church who you have almost 150 years given to the service of this community, and we just hope to be faithful and to be good receptors of the incredible saints who have come before us. God, for all the saints who are coming after us, for all we're doing to sustain this place for the sake of the mission you have for us today and for the mission you're giving them tomorrow, guide us, empower us, give us the gifts we need so we can have strength for today and bright hope for tomorrow. We pray all this in the name of your resurrected Son, the one in whom we have hope and gives us life today and always. Amen.